And I want to give you a little synopsis or brief thought that I've used some in sermons around the country. And let me share with you a scripture or two here right quickly. Okay. Paul wrote to young Timothy, and Paul said, "Let no man despise thy youth." Now what he's saying, he's not saying let no man despise the fact that you're young. He's saying let no man despise you because you act too much like a youth. Let no man despise thy youth. In other words, you behave yourself so nobody will despise you. What he's saying is quit sitting back in the back, slouching down, writing notes. And what he's saying is quit your dirty rock music and straighten up your life and act like a Christian ought to act. Then he said, no man despise thy youth. Now here's the interesting thing. He's talking to a young man here. He said, but be thou an example of the believers. Well, I always thought the adults are supposed to be an example of the kids. That's not what Paul said here. He said that the young people should be an example of the older people. That means, it says, let no man be an example of the believers. And he lists different ways. In word, the way you talk. That's one reason why I teach our young folks here they shouldn't use the jargon of the world. Blast does not mean a good time, means a loud noise. Neat means not wrinkled, but pressed. Bread is something you eat, not something that you spend. We teach our young folks here at First Baptist Church that's the jargon of the day, and so is killing babies, the habit of our day, and so is the lack of respect and indecency, and so forth. Paul said that the young people should be an example to the older people in the way they talk. And he goes on to say, in conversation. That word conversation means in every way you express yourself. Your entire manner of life, your talk, your walk, every way you express yourself. The young people should be an example of the believers. He goes on to say, in charity. And that means in love and the expressing of that love. In spirit. We heard of something about that last night from our little timid Dr. Bob Gray. About spirit. Young people should have a better spirit than anybody in the church, a better attitude, and be an example of it. In faith, in purity, till I come, give attendance reading to exhortation, to doctrine. Now, then he says, neglect not the gift that is in thee, which was given thee by prophecy, with the laying on of the hands of the presbytery. Meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them. That's what I want you to do. Go home and give yourself wholly, everything you got. I mean, just spend yourself in the work of God. Now then, here's what I want to talk about for just about 5-10 minutes. He says, Timothy, you got yourself in this shape now. He said, Timothy, you got yourself now in this shape. He said you're behaving yourself so nobody can despise the fact that you're young. He said, Timothy, you got yourself as an example now in word, in conversation, and in love, and in faith, and in purity. Now he said you got yourself in as you ought to be. Now look at me carefully. He said, Timothy, take heed to thyself. What he said was, when you do all of this and become the right kind of young person, step back and take heed to yourself. Now that little term, take heed to yourself, means examine thyself, study thyself, and copy thyself. That's what he's saying. He's saying, Timothy, you copy as you grow older the young Timothy. What you fellows think of as Christian growth is Christian coldness and deadness. He's saying you preach as actively when you're an old preacher as you did when you're a young preacher. He's saying you have as much zeal as an old preacher as you have a young preacher. When I began preaching at pastoring at the age of 21, preaching at the age of 19, I didn't know how to build a church. That little Grange Hall Baptist church, I didn't know a thing about how to build a church. I fell on my face and said, God, you've got to help me. I don't even know what a church budget is. We didn't, at our college, nobody taught us how to have a church budget. Nobody taught us how to baptize. Nobody taught us how to give the Lord's Supper. Nobody taught us how to preach. They taught us Reinhold Niebuhr and Emil Brunner and all that garbage, but Kierkegaard, but I didn't know how to do it. And I looked up and I said, God, you got to help me. And praise his name, he did help me. And that little church began to be the exciting church of the whole county. And now, when I went to Henderson, Texas, I said, now what am I going to be down here? I did what Paul said. I studied the young Jack Hyles and copied him. I went to Garland, Texas, and what did I do there? I copied the Jack Hyles from Henderson, Texas. I came to Hammond, Indiana. What do I do here? I copied the Jack Hyles from Garland, Texas. What Paul is saying here, he's saying, don't you change. You stay like you were. He said, Brother Hyles, how about growth in grace? Growth in grace doesn't mean adding anything. It means growing in the things you've already got. I got 5 fingers on this left hand. I got news for you. That's exactly how many I had when I was born. He's saying, don't look for a bunch of new stuff. Grow in the old stuff. Grow in prayer. Grow in purity. Grow in faith. Grow in soul winning. Grow in church building. But phooey on this new garbage coming out. I wouldn't give you a dime for all these stupid seminars, feminars, hymnars, stupid R's, and all the rest of them going on around America. We need to get back to the very basic. And most of you older preachers did a lot better when you were young. Copy. That's what I do. You know who my favorite preacher is? The young Jack Hyles. I know how to build a church now. I know how to draw up a church budget now. Okay, shall I do it the way I know how to do it, or shall I do it the way God led me to do it when I didn't know how to do it? And that's what I'm trying to tell you this week. I want you to copy. For example, the young preacher. Copy young preacher in his preaching. You know, I pounded the pulpit when I was young. I pound the pulpit now. I run across a platform when I was young, and I run across a stupid platform. I mean, on the Sunday morning worship hour. That's the way I used to do it. I'm not going to stop it. You say, don't you think you ought to get more dignified? No, I watched you do that and saw what it did to you. I'm saying I copy the young Jack Hyles in his preaching. I copy the young Jack Hyles in his Bible. Young Jack Hyles used a King James Bible. And it worked pretty well. And every stinking one of you, and those of you that smell good, which is not many of you, by the way, but when you preachers, when you took off for college, you were toting a King James Bible. And some dead professor told you the American Standard was better, or the NIV was better, and that dead professor knows nothing about church building, nothing about revivals, nothing about altar calls. And there you sit today with your NIV Bible or Magic Johnson's HIV Bible. There you sit today. You'd be a lot better off if you'd never change and go back and be the preacher you used to be when you were young. I copied young Jack Hyles' preaching. I copied young Jack Hyles' Bible. I'm 68 years of age. I copied young Jack Hyles' doctrine. I believed in the verbal inspiration of the Bible. As a young Jack Hyles, I believe in the verbal inspiration of the Bible now. Some of you ladies